On Miles's playlist. Christian Spicer, you and I got an early copy of Rise of the Ronin, which is a new PlayStation Studios release. We are able to talk a very specific portion of the game today. We can talk more at a later date, but we held this episode so we could talk a little preview discussion. Preview hands-on is really what we are talking now. We have the full version of the game, but our preview hands-on can cover what is, I think, maybe the first couple of hours. And I want to know what you think of Rise of the Ronin.
Yeah, so it is Team Ninja game. PlayStation Studios published, but Team Ninja, the developer. Neo 2, Ninja Gaiden, way back when. And even from these first hours that we can talk about, this game, I think, is going to live and die in its combat. Assuming what you start out with or what the game shows you early continues to pay off as you go. Like this game, not necessarily like Neo in terms of its combat, which is more Souls-like. I mean, there is that, but it is a combat-dense game. There are characters and stances and weapons, and any enemy can kill you, but you're also taking on mobs of them because it's faster. It has kind of Sekiro vibes in that regard, where Sekiro was the faster Souls-like even than Bloodborne, and you're expected to do more against not an army, but 3 or 4 people attacking you all at the same time. So I feel like it has a lot of that. And early on, it shows you this idea that I think is fascinating of switching between characters. So you are in control of your character that you go into this character creator and make, and there's tons of options to, pick how you want to look and then take that character into the game. But you are then with another character, and there are moments where you are playing and you can switch between them at any time. And when you're not playing it, it's controlled by, the computer and engaging in combat and being helpful, not just standing there off to the side like, you got it! Like they're engaging. But I found moments to be really cool in this style of game to then switch to that other character, that other protagonist. And now suddenly I'm behind this Souls-like boss, not necessarily a Souls-like big monster, but like this difficult combat encounter that I'm in. But now I'm coming at it from behind, right? I've literally switched positions, and the intricacies that opens up.
The enemy somehow knows who the player character is all the time. They focus on who you're controlling at any given time, so you can sort of like ping pong back and forth, so that it'll chase after the one that you're playing as, and then you switch around and it's like, I am not left-handed. I'm behind you now, and then it'll be like, oh, I'm gonna attack that one, and then you can. I was having fun with that too, ping ponging back and forth.
Yeah.
Another thing is that if you're like me and you're not particularly awesome at parries, you can see an attack coming and switch to the other character right as the attack's coming, and then the computer can parry for you.
Pro tip right there.
Yeah.
Jeff's actually never playing. He hasn't actually played any of Rise of the Ronin yet, but he's switched between the characters to let the computer
I am leading the league in assists.
I think for me, it's hard even with these early previews to not compare this game to Ghost of Tsushima, which is a game that I absolutely loved. Absolutely loved. In a different style of engaging combat, but also stances, weapons, being aware of the enemy you're coming up against, how you're going to, counter what they're doing. And so I think it's hard. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I don't mean to interrupt you. I think it's the natural game to compare it to, and in a lot of ways deserves that comparison. I think right off the top, though, I want to be clear to people. I think tonally, very different games. This is a much more pulpy, over the top. I found Ghost of Tsushima to be very attempting to be much more grounded and kind of realistic is not the right word. I mean, there's nothing realistic per se about Ghost of Tsushima, right? It's you literally see the wind, but it's a much more, I think, based in reality kind of experience, and trying to honor the history of the culture, and not to say that this game is not, but it is very much more trying to convey a pulpy big action movie experience that is much more akin to Ninja Gaiden, I think, than, which is consistent with the pedigree of the developer, but it's much more consistent to that than I would say Ghost of Tsushima is really, as actiony as it is, it's really trying to aim for something closer to, I don't know, Last of Us. It's like a grounded kind of realistic thing, but you can disagree with me if you.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'm not sure if I disagree, but I'm not sure. I think I'd want to play more of Rise of the Ronin, or talk about more of Rise of the Ronin. I think I understand what you're saying with Ghost of Tsushima and kind of how it presents its world, but I think Rise of the Ronin, even from these early parts, establishes a very interesting and real world of when Japan was closed off to the West, and what that means to now have it be opened up. But yes, I agree that it does seem, silly is not quite the right word, but it seems odd to then have this Westerner, pull out their katana and be dive rolling and zipping around all over the world as you're engaged in this very cinematic style samurai ninja fight. Like, that doesn't feel grounded into the world that they've then created. But I don't know if it's necessarily pulpy or just not hitting the mark. Like, that's what I struggle with. I think this game's combat is going to please a lot of people. Again, assuming it continues what they show in the beginning, and there's the skills and everything develop, and you're able to keep diving into the nuance of this combat system. But I don't think it's a particularly beautiful game. Again, I feel bad saying that. I don't think I'm a graphic snob necessarily, but when it's going for, I think it's a realistic setting, right? Like the world in which it lives and the art style that it is chasing is one based in realism. And as a PlayStation 5 game, there are load times. There are things about this game that I went and re-downloaded Ghost of Tsushima to play it again, the PS5 upgrade version. Yeah, I have a hard time not being like, I like that other one better. Even if maybe they're not doing the same thing, I think they're close enough that I'm really curious to see if the depth of the combat in Rise of the Ronin is enough to pull me through. Because this first part, I'm not sure.
I think the fun that it's offering is that dynamism of the pinging back and forth between the two characters.
Yeah.
And there's something really cool about that. I think there's something genuinely cool about that. And, we haven't even mentioned yet, you have a grappling hook where you can grapple around the environment in certain areas. Not anywhere. You have to have like a grappling anchor. But you can also use that in combat. You can pull people towards you. You can grab exploding barrels in the environment and toss them at people. It's cool. There's a lot of like cool options. And, you're getting new weapons. You start the game not just creating your character, but kind of creating a template for your character. I went with the seducer, which I was very excited about. In this early section of the game, I found no one to seduce. And I was very I'm the seducer. It was like, you're going to have a high charisma score. And it's like, okay, how is that a high charisma score doing when I'm literally just fighting tons of people? There's no...
That I'm very curious to see where it goes, because there's a lot of stuff that you're setting up at the beginning that isn't paid off in the first couple hours. Right. But I also kind of love this as a preview, right? Where they're not giving you, a lot of times these previews are, you're 4 hours into the game. This is what
here's
the game's
everything
going
unlocked.
to be. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So maybe it really, blooms like a flower. I think that would be cool. And I found myself liking it. I did not have the visual qualms that you have. I thought the game was pretty attractive. I mean, if you had told me it was a PS4 game, I would believe you, but I do think I think it's attractive game. I had no problem with it. I mean, there are some moments where I was like, which direction am I supposed to go? You know, there's some clarity things with that. The menus are a little clunky, but I don't know. I think I was having a little more fun with it than you. Again, very early on in the game, who knows, you know, what's to come. It may disappoint or thrill in varying degrees, but I'm encouraged. I did not love Ghost of Tsushima as much as you did. Folks that listen to the show will note. So maybe I don't have as much of that shadow looming over this game as you do.
Which I do recognize is perhaps an unfair comparison, because I think because there are so few games set in this era that it perhaps unfairly, it's like Sekiro. I think, was Sekiro my first Souls game? That I think it was. I think I streamed it. It was like my first From game that I really dove into. So that has a special place in my heart. And then Ghost of Tsushima, I loved. That is a special place in my heart. And now it's like, now there's another one. How much room does do I have in my heart?
My heart can only handle so much.
You need a bigger heart,
so much. Which I feel like is perhaps an unfair comparison, but
his heart grew 3 sizes that day.
Maybe on the combat it will. Maybe it will.
Yeah, we'll talk more about this game when we can, but I don't know. I think I'm a little more encouraged by the early bits than you. But yeah, I mean, it is a very combat heavy game, and you know, in the character creation, it really led me to believe, oh, maybe this game is going to let me like talk my way out of fights, and you know, I'm the high charisma, and it's like, you're high charisma. That means you should use the spear weapon. And I was like, what?
Huh?
How did that?
It's because you make good points.
Hey-o! I mean, all the weapons have points, but okay. Yeah. And then you have these starting weapons. They make such a big deal about it. And then it's like literally at the very beginning, it's like, hey, you found a new cool saber. It's +4 to that dumb old spear that you had. I was like, but all my charisma's in that spear. It's like, I guess I'm just using whatever awesome weapon I find next. It doesn't have anything to do with what I'm specialized in. I don't know. It has some mixed messaging at the beginning, but I don't know. I think it has some promise. I'm more encouraged by it. I think it's an interesting. I hope the traversal gets more fun. There's a lot of like, you can leap up onto this thing, and then you're in the hold of this ship at the very beginning, and it's like there's boxes that I could clearly leap onto, and it won't let me. You know, that was a little frustrating too. Anyway,
Team Ninja
that's Rise of the Ronin.
They've made some of my favorite action games of all time. And if anyone knows combat, I feel like they still do. And that's why I think the character creator, what they show you early on with switching between people and the depth seems like it's there. I have a feeling that, you know, when we can talk about after I've played the full game, I'll be like, yeah, okay, top 5. I feel again, it's pedigree, what they show you just in the character creator. And even that you mentioned like charisma, spear, but as you go through just those basic, you don't have to pick one of them. You can tinker all your own stuff.
Right.
But just on those basic like starter things, the weapon variety you see there, it's like, oh, you want dual swords and a pistol, which one is cool because you don't usually have that combination. That like actually you want a musket and a this. Like I feel like that complexity is going to play out, and that's super exciting.
Yeah, I'm encouraged by Rise of the Ronin. I also, you know, I feel like the original Xbox Ninja Gaiden game does not get the credit it deserves for being really ahead of its time, because I feel like all the justifiable plaudits that Souls games get for changing the industry, I think they owe a big debt of gratitude to Ninja Gaiden. I think that I don't know if you get to Dark Souls or Demon Souls or whatever the first one was without the first Ninja that reboot of the Ninja Gaiden franchise, which was kind of doing it before the Souls games were.
Just a lot faster. But yes,
a lot faster. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, those games were great. You can get the full audio version of this show by subscribing to the RSS feed, which you can find at dlcpod.com. And you can support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/dlcpod. where you will get ad-free versions of the show, video versions of the show on demand, and a whole bunch of extra content, like Wednesday's show, paid DLC, including spoiler chats, so much more. That's patreon.com/DLCpod.